Take me out to the ball game.
And now, Twitch It Dolphin Media presents The Joys of Mudville, a look at the current state of baseball. Now here are your hosts, Scott McIntyre, Andy Tom Chesson, and James Christopher. And welcome back to The Joys of Mudville. It has been a couple of weeks. COVID robbed us of a day. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
It was like we had a 2020 flashback. COVID robbed us of a day. We didn't record.
Yeah, that's true.
A day. Yeah, it took a day. Yeah, just like 2020.
Right.
Before we start, though, I do think it's appropriate for us to reflect on what happened in Uvalde, Texas. Those of you who don't know, we had another active shooter situation, this time with a very high body count. And, I'm siding with a lot of people who are sort of tired of having to have these moments where we reflect on these things. And, I saw that John Cornyn and Representative Crenshaw will not be attending the NRA convention that is happening in Houston this weekend. That's right. It's still going on, but I don't know, guys. I mean, I'm just, we'll start with Andy because you're a fellow Texan. I mean, just where are you with all this? Because I know that it really kind of affected you as well.
It didn't affect me near as much as people who have family in Uvalde, and there aren't really words anymore. And I know probably shouldn't say that because we're about to talk for 30 minutes, but every time one of these things happens, and unfortunately it happens way too often. There was a shooting a week and a half ago in Buffalo, and now we have this in Uvalde. And yes, it's worse if you can measure worse somehow, because there were elementary school kids involved. 18 of them were murdered. Another 14, I believe, are still injured and in some various degrees of critical condition. The system has failed. An 18-year-old was allowed to buy from a licensed dealer 2 assault rifles. And I'm not going to get into the particulars of, well, there's no such thing as an assault rifle. This gentleman, Mr. Ramos, was 100% allowed to buy legally 2 assault rifles and murder people with no background check, with no anything stopping him. And the thoughts and prayers from those of us that can't do anything else, 100% understand it. I'm not belittling anybody's faith, but the thoughts and prayers from our politicians and people who are supposed to be our elected officials and leaders ring really, really hollow and hypocritical, because they can do something about it and they refuse to do something about it. And until they do, or until we as a people vote for people who are going to actually support our needs as a country, these things are going to continue to happen.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. You can't buy alcohol in this country unless you're 21. You can't buy other things. And look, I understand that the issue is complicated, but the issue isn't as complicated as the NRA is making it, Scott. Like, I think what most people want isn't getting rid of guns. It's having background checks that are universal, and it's having law enforcement agencies able to talk to each other legally and being able to actually track what people are doing. And, this morning, and I was happy to do it, but I was asked to be out front at school and welcoming students to create an additional presence, because this is the world we live in.
Yeah. It's a big, huge, complicated problem, right? It really is. And big, huge, complicated problems don't get solved through polarization and party lines. They get solved by collaboration and compromise. And unfortunately, both of those words are dirty words when it comes to our lawmakers, whether it's in state houses or the U.S. Congress. People do not work together any longer, and these are the issues that arise because of that. It's a matter of background checks. It's a matter of mental health records while protecting the privacy of people at the same time. Can you keep an eye on someone's social media presence that's sending private messages 30 minutes before they shoot their grandmother and 15 minutes before they shoot a school full of kids? Can you keep an eye on that and still have personal freedoms that we enjoy as Americans. These are big, huge, complicated problems that honestly, I'm not sure if our congressional leaders are really equipped to deal with until they break down party lines. It's something in the corporate world, in the education world, everywhere else. We have to we work together, right? We all work together to figure out the big issues and who needs what from whom. That hasn't been done here yet, and I hope it is soon. Or I hope we get really thick skin and you just get used to innocent people being killed at random, because one of those two things has to happen, or we just sit here and talk about stuff like this.
Andy, did you want to follow up on that?
I mean, I'm literally at a loss for words because I don't know. The only logical conclusion I can reach, Scott's 100% right, and I know we do that a lot on this show. Scott tells me I'm right a lot. I don't tell Scott nearly enough, so I apologize, Scott, that I don't acknowledge how right you are sometimes.
Well, you're right more often than me. I mean, there we go. So I can say that more.
But I think we're a broken people, and maybe that means we're a broken country. But we've just come to accept this. The Buffalo shooting's not even in the news cycle anymore, and it's 10 days old. This will probably stay in the news cycle for a couple of weeks because small kids were involved. And then we'll move on to the next thing. And then we'll get worried about what the party I'm a part of is right and the party you're a part of is wrong. And that's the end of it. And that's where we go. Yesterday, it was quickly trying to turn this shooting, which is a gun problem and a mental health problem, into an immigration problem because the guy was Hispanic, and it was somehow Uvalde became a border town.
That's the thing, Scott. I know you've not been out there, but it's at the closest border point. It's over an hour away. It is not a border.
Yeah, I just it's okay to have multiple problems. I don't know about where you guys work, but I deal with multiple problems every day. We can deal with multiple problems. We should be able to, but I don't know. It's more important for my side to be right than to actually fix an issue.
But we're all looking for we're as a country going to look for the next diversion because this is too hard to deal with, and it comes down to who we vote for and the leaders that we choose to follow. We're not voting in our best interests anymore, and you may think you may think your interests are being represented. I promise you, my friends who are voting very heavily to the right now are also people who need things like food stamps and Social Security and their taxes being lowered, and none of that's happening with the party they vote for, but they keep voting for the same people because we want to own the libs. And there are people on the left who do just as many self-destructive things for themselves in their voting. So this isn't a partisan conversation. But right now, we need to find a way to come together as a country and address the issue that we are the only industrialized nation in the world that has mass shootings at the clip that we do. We're not even number one in gun ownership. Canada beats us by far. They don't go out killing people. We do.
Right.
So it is a mental health issue, as we want to deflect to, but it's also an access to guns issue.
But you're right, though. I mean, just the very fact that Ken Paxton won the Republican primary, despite the fact that he is under indictment and investigation by federal law enforcement. Like, I don't know what we're doing.
It's his ad campaign. I don't know how much they were running in Austin, and certainly you didn't have exposure to this in Missouri, Scott. Kim Paxton was running against his woke liberal competitor in the primary this week. That woke liberal competitor is George P. Bush, Jeb Bush's son. The Bushes were known for being woke and way too liberal. I mean, but that's how crazy this has all gotten. People who would be considered moderate or hard conservatives 10 years ago are now considered soft. And soft is evidently the worst thing you can be.
Yeah, it's really funny if you go back and look at Richard Nixon's history, and I think everybody would agree that Richard Nixon was quite conservative, but he's not. If you look at him in comparison to today, and that was only 50 years ago, and the guy got ran out of office. So everything's gone extreme, and the folks in the middle are left behind.
Yeah, I don't know.
So-
And Beto O'Rourke today interrupted the press conference. I don't even know how I feel about that, because on the one hand, I applaud the moral courage to do it. On the other hand, it felt like a political stunt in a time when we don't need those things. So I don't know. I wanted to at least reflect on that a second, because we are going to talk some baseball. That's what people are logging in for. And we'll talk a little college baseball first, because it's funny to me, or not really funny. I mean, I guess it's just how baseball works, how the fortunes of the three teams that we all root for have completely changed from the beginning of the thing. And Texas won today. They're the 5th seed, I think. No, they're the 6th seed in the Big 12 tournament. There's only 10 teams or 9 teams or something.
There's not 12. I promise you that
There's
much.
not 12. There'll be
And
4.
Iowa State does not have baseball. They do have
don't.
corn, but not baseball.
So it's 9 teams. They got the win today, but like they're sitting at where I think they have to win the Big 12 tournament to host a regional. A&M seems like, I think they might host a regional, and you didn't have that expectation, Andy, when we started.
Yeah,
They may host a super regional.
Yeah, they'll host a regional at this point. The question is, do you get a national seed? Which, if you had asked any real A&M fan 2 months ago, we hoped to make a regional, and that's after we realized we'd probably be a 500 team, because we don't have great pitching. I mean, it's certainly a flawed team, but it goes to show you how good coaching, especially Schlossnagel, everybody knows, but Nate Yeske and Michael Early, who are hitting and pitching coaches, reverse those titles for those names, have done an incredible job piecing together a team from, I think, 4 holdovers from Rob Childress's last team, and the rest are transfers and freshmen, and have gotten to the point, depending on which poll you want to look at, are somewhere between 3 and 5 in the country. RPI is not great, might not get a national seed because of that. Probably have to have a decent showing if there's an SEC tournament, because weather is not cooperating right now.
Right.
But in an amazing, surprising place.
Explain to me how the RPI makes sense. When I beat a team on a Friday and my ranking goes down, then I lose to that team on a Saturday and my ranking goes up. Well, I don't get it. I don't get it. But yeah, A&M's done a heck of a job in a tough conference that I think is more parodied.
I certainly don't want to pick on Scott because of this, but our season really beating LSU 2 out of 3 at LSU was great. That was the first time I think the team started
changed when you guys beat us.
Maybe we could win, but beating Arkansas 2 out of 3, I think really set the trajectory for the team, because they haven't lost a series since that point.
I would agree. And Jim and I now have to be at odds this week because the Texas and Arkansas women's softball teams are playing each other for the right to go to Oklahoma City in the College World Series.
How is that
a
reward?
I don't know.
I've been to Oklahoma City. Why is that a reward?
I don't know. And it's there every year, right? Like it's the,
Yeah.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal there. Oklahoma City's not bad. It's kind of like, like the oasis in the desert or something.
I don't. I guess I don't like anything really about Oklahoma.
At least it ain't Norman.
And it's funny because we're in kind of a somber mood. So I wanted our other topic to be about, the at first I had a fun topic. I'm going to push the fun topic to next time, but if we're going to stay heavy, let's stay heavy. And we have to talk about the Josh Donaldson situation. The Andy, why don't you break it down for us and just, what happened and your thoughts on it?
I mean, as near as I can tell, Josh Donaldson played for the Twins last year, and at some point has run across Tim Anderson as an AL Central opponent. And Tim Anderson has somewhat infamously referred to himself as the Jackie Robinson of the Chicago White Sox. Whether that was tongue-in-cheek, and I tend to suspect it wasn't, because Tim Anderson's a little bit of full of himself a lot of times, very bombastic personality. There was a fight between the White Sox and the Yankees over the past weekend. White Sox, tempers flared in the pushing and shoving, because baseball fights aren't real. They haven't been for a really, really long time. It's a whole lot of, oh, you make way too much money, I don't want to hurt my fingers. Josh Donaldson called Tim Anderson Jackie in a fairly derogatory way. And so it's not the words, it's the context, certainly.
Right.
No one, and that, to my knowledge, is the end of it. I mean, there's been some back and forth in the media. Josh Donaldson got suspended for a game, which is a little bit curious considering some of the other suspensions that have been handed out or not in Major League Baseball. But that's kind of where we are right now.
Yeah.
If you listen to Donaldson, he and Anderson, they go way back, and he says that, we say stuff like that all the time. That's not a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of sure that Josh Donaldson believes that. Whether it's true or not, I don't know.
Right. And Tim Anderson says that Tim Anderson says the first time that he called him Jackie, which wasn't this incident, it was, I think, last season, he said that his response was, "We never have to speak again." Like, so clearly Anderson didn't see it as an inside joke.
Right. Exactly. And so that's where it's one of those, if there should just be a rule of thumb that, look, if you're a white guy, you're not a minority. Okay. So if you say something once that's borderline and you're told, hey, don't say it no more. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just gonna go out on a limb here, but just don't say it anymore. Just say something different. I don't know. I think we're all guilty of having uttered words or said something and then go, I could have chosen something better to say there. Right? Everybody's guilty of that. But if I kind of have a feeling here, you're just dealing with two people that I really don't want to hang out with, outside of work, so to speak, anyway. And Donaldson probably said exactly what he said before, and Tim Anderson probably told him exactly what Tim Anderson told him. And Donaldson, being a little full of himself, just went ahead and said it in the heat of the moment because I know how to get under this guy's skin. And it's picked up by other people, and now you're serving a game suspension. Maybe, I don't know. Shut up. There's an idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hothead versus a beathead.
Yeah, perfect.
And that's ultimately what Josh Donaldson, I believe Scott's probably accurate. I don't think Josh Donaldson has any recognition that what he did was wrong necessarily, or at least the context of why it's wrong. He knew that it would bother Tim Anderson, so he said it. It's the verbal equivalent of, I'm going to put my finger right here. I'm not touching you. But it's right here. It's right. Oh, no, don't move. And it's childish stupidity, but Donaldson's not smart enough not to do it. And Anderson, to his credit, didn't throw a punch and probably would have been justified in doing so because he had drawn that line in the past. Donaldson proceeded to cross it again. It's a bunch of nonsense to a large extent.
But you brought up the
I think everybody has the right to give you a chance to say, look, I don't want you saying this to me again.
Yeah.
And there will be consequences. And that's where we are. And now there's consequences. The consequences, right, wrong, or indifferent, were doled out by MLB and not Tim Anderson himself, other than a little bit of pushy shovey.
But you brought up the suspensions, and I do agree that they seem very
capricious.
Right. And, because we have the Bauer suspension, which I think we all agreed with, the length of, and then we had the guy from the Angels who helped kill a dude, got 75 games. And then Anderson gets a game. And I don't know what I probably would have given Anderson 3 games. I think 1 game doesn't really, it's a day off for a player. 3 games, you're starting to feel, I don't know. But yeah, Andy, it just seems like they're good. They are all over the place.
Well, because the second that the Major League Baseball, as soon as Major League Baseball has to make a ruling, they have to consider what the Major League Baseball Players Union is going to say about that ruling, because they're trying to get to the point where we say something, there's no room for appeal. And I really think a 1-game suspension is them basically saying, look, this is not worth your time to appeal. Just let's have him serve it and get it done with. Because baseball, frankly, can't handle a whole bunch of black eyes when it comes to race relations in 2022. They don't have a whole lot of moral high ground to stand on with the continuing withering of the African-American baseball player in America. What baseball is turning into in youth leagues. If you did not have the Latin player explosion that we've had over the past 2 decades, it would look an awful lot like most things in Nebraska. just very white, a lot of mullets.
Lots of it would be lacrosse. Scott, I mean, what do you
I think they
mean,
just have. I think they have a pool of games, and because they suspended Bauer for so long, and the Angels got it for so long, then they only have like. I don't know. That's just I'm full. They're like, we only got like 42 more to spare for the year, guys. We really want to put this guy down for 3 days.
Finite games they can. You know what? That's the most believable reason.
I mean, dartboard.
You know, anything over 500 days total suspension throughout the year, they have to. I don't know. You got to take players union reps out to lunch or something. Like, I don't want to go eat lunch with those guys, so let's just suspend him for a game. That's the only thing that makes any sense to me. It's so arbitrary, and it's so arbitrary in every sport. It is absolutely ridiculous. The two sports that I seem to follow the most being baseball and hockey, and both of them, I see so many similarities. And when I go, they find the guy, what? They suspend him, what? For nothing for that? Really? Okay, fine. He sliced a guy open with a skate. Cool. Fine. He beamed a guy in the head with a baseball. All right, cool. Yeah, he got suspended $2,500 and was told not to eat a sandwich out of the clubhouse. None of it makes any sense to me. It really does. And I can't tell you who's going to get suspended for how long, what the appeal is going to be like. Arenado charges a Mets guy to suspend him for 3 games. He says, nah, you shouldn't suspend me that long. I appeal. They say, yeah, you're right, 1 game. Make up your mind. I don't know. Anyway.
What do you guys think the odds are that Bauer's suspension is going to get reduced? Andy, we'll go with you first.
I don't have any special insight to it. I hope it's not, because I think it's completely warranted. I also think, as we've discussed ad nauseum on this show, his pain is going to be missing out on the prime of his career, both from a performance perspective and an earnings perspective. So I think the punishment has fit the crime. I think that it shouldn't be lifted. I have no idea what they're going to do. I don't see where Trevor Bauer has much of a leg to stand on. And every time he, to use something that happened today, better or works into somebody else's personal issues and complains about his punishment relative to theirs, it makes him look worse and worse and worse. But he's a petulant child, so I don't expect much different from him. He's just gonna, somebody else got suspended, but it was less than 2 years, so that's wrong, and I'm right. Oh, look at me, Rachel, give me a beer. I hope that it's not reduced, and I hope if they can find a way to add time to it, like they found out he did something else. I'm all rooting for that.
Wish I had
still doubt that he's
when
gonna...
you said, Rachel, give me a beer. Never mind.
What about you, Scott? I mean, you think it's going to get reduced? I imagine it's going to get reduced somewhat. I don't think it's going to get reduced a lot, but what do you think?
Depends on the evidence that MLB has. So if MLB has the evidence that they believe they have, and like we've talked about, this has already been floated past the players union before it was agreed to.
True.
So if they've got what it seems they have, I don't see it being reduced. I really don't. Now, if it's like Mr. Bauer says, and they don't have what they say they have, then I think it will be drastically reduced. I don't think it'll be a small reduction in it. I think either you will serve the term, or somebody's going to go, wait a minute, you're running this guy up the creek for no reason. Yes, he's a jerk, but maybe he's not this much of a jerk. It all comes down to the evidence. But everything in me tells me that MLB has binders of information about women, if I can paraphrase Mitt Romney, and I think they will. I think he serves out the term. I also think it's in the Dodgers' interest that he serves out the term, because they don't want to pay him. And they're kind of a big deal.
Scott brought up an excellent point. The Major League Baseball Players Association loves to appeal suspensions. They love to do it. They have not stepped up. They have not made one public statement on behalf of Trevor Bauer, or even that they're willing to look into it for him. So my belief, based on that circumstantial evidence being what it is they've been told enough that they don't disagree with Major League Baseball. I don't think it's just a matter of, we don't want to look like we're taking the side of the guy who has sex with unconscious women, dude. Because look in our rogues gallery, we got a few of those. But that's kind of the most damning evidence, without it being evidence from a circumstantial standpoint, that the players union's not taking up for him at all, and they take up for everybody. There's something there.
I also want to add, I think they're also watching what's happening with Deshaun Watson over in the NFL with Cleveland and what he signed, and how women are coming out publicly that have accused him of doing things and blasting him, and the national response is vastly on the side of those women. And there's a big correlation into what Deshaun Watson was accused with and what Bauer was accused with, and Bauer made it worse whenever he tweets at Deshaun Watson like "attaboy" or some. So I think if MLB is smart at all, which we can debate that a different time, they are watching what's happening with Watson and the response to that and saying, nah, we don't want any part of that.
You think Deshaun Watson feels good whenever Trevor subtweets him? I bet he doesn't.
I think he goes home and spreads $230 million out on his bed and just floats around and makes snow angels, and it doesn't care what anybody's thinking. $1 million
this year. That contract is weird.
Yeah. No, you're right. And I still think it comes down to whether he plays again or not, is what team wants to bite that bullet. And I don't think,
yes, sir.
I can't
Saskatchewan?
see.
Does
What's
Saskatchewan have a team? Saskatchewan?
Yeah, I don't think.
Saskatoon. They got a team up in Saskatoon.
Yeah.
And they're pretty good, I'm sure.
There you go. Thank you for picking up what
I think he'll be. He might play in Japan. Scott, one question left for you. It's a little painful.
Oh, wait. If he plays in Japan, will certain parts of them be blurred out? And if you're laughing at that, I know you.
Scott, one question left for you, man.
Wonder if you'll learn to throw a spitter.
Will there be a squid involved?
Probably. Well, we have devolved. We went from serious to squids and spitters in Japan. But hey, it's Trevor Bauer. Everything comes up.
We absolutely did. But Scott, I have to ask, I feel like it was my fault for wearing the shirt, but do the Blues have a chance to get back in this?
Nope. And they did not, since the 7-time suspended jerk cheap shot artist Nazem Kadri made no effort to get out of Jordan Bennington's way and ran him over in net after Ivan Barbashev delivered a clean hit that broke the Colorado defenseman Gerard's sternum and I was at the game. I saw the guy. The business was open, boys, but there was nobody at the front desk after that guy got hit. Okay. The Blues don't. The Blues don't. It pains me to say it, but too many things stacked against them, and Colorado is an amazing team. I don't blame it on you, Jim. I will not blame it on you. I will blame it on, and this is the second year in a row that Nazem Kadri's
waiting for Andy to chime in with who. I'm waiting for Andy to chime in with who you should blame it on.
I blame it on Nazem Kadri. We'll take care of it. We'll take care of it first game next year. We see.
For my generation, the go-to answer is always going to be Canada. Blame Canada.
Oh, I was hoping that one of you guys would blame it on the rain, but okay.
We could. I will say this though, and in all seriousness, Jim, I know you're a fan of the movie Goon, that people can watch on Amazon, Netflix, wherever. Goon
many streaming devices.
Is that there's also a documentary called Ice Guardians. The NHL took enforcers out of the game years ago to reduce fighting, so it would reduce injuries and reduce head injuries. And there's arguments to be made that it's done just the opposite, because nobody has to pay for their actions and be held accountable on the ice. Some interesting stuff if anybody wants to ever get into that. So, like I said, I enjoy watching hockey because I don't know that much about it. I know way too much about baseball sometimes to enjoy it.
That's true. I think that's a good place to leave it, guys. We will be back next week with a little bit more Joys of Mudville. Until then, go Stros, go Cardinals, and I hope may all the baseball gods be forever in your favor.
Hey, if you're in the SEC, just let's have a tournament.
Oh, yeah.
It's 1, 2, 3 strikes you right.